Welcome everyone. Today we'll be presenting Walkability, Population, and Transit in Buffalo, New York. Next slide, please. For a brief outline, let me review who will be presenting each section from our group. For the introduction and background, it will be presented by myself, Libertad Figuereo. The focus area and methods, along with part of the findings, will be presented by Samuel Gallivan. Findings and conclusion will finally be presented by Lanika. Next slide, please. Introduction. For our problem statement, we have the following. In order to plan for improved transportation within the city of Buffalo, walkability is researched and analyzed to inform the direction and use of community development grant funding within neighborhoods in Buffalo, New York. Our goals are as follows. First, it's to improve walkability and general ease of transportation within communities in Buffalo neighborhoods. And second, it's to be able to model effective walkability and transportation improvements so as to allow for replication throughout the rest of the city of Buffalo. Next slide, please. For some background information, why is walkability important? Walkability is an important indicator of resource access within a neighborhood, as well as a determinant of residents' physical well-being. With that being said, residents from a highly walkable neighborhood take more steps per day and walk more as a method of transportation. If neighborhoods with low levels of car access are not walkable and/or lack access to sufficient public transportation, residents will have trouble accessing necessary goods and services. GIS offers an efficient method of assessing a walking environment. A walk score based on qualitative and quantitative features, such as street connectivity and available amenities, can be developed to evaluate pedestrian environments, particularly around transit stops. GIS can also indicate spatial clustering of socioeconomic distress, helping municipalities recognize where resources are needed most and evaluate the impact of new programs by comparing targeted areas. Next slide, please.
Our focus area is a section of North Buffalo located on Main Street and Scajaquada Expressway. Block groups in our study area were taken from three neighborhoods: Leroy, Parkside, and Hamlin Park. To demonstrate the need for community development investment in Buffalo, some economic statistics are here to be presented. The median household income of Buffalo is $37,359, and the employment rate is 59.7%. We'll be looking at two primary statistics to conduct our analysis in our study area: population density and access to a personal vehicle by household. Overview statistics for our study area reveal a population density of 2,289 persons per square kilometer for the entire study area, and 25.12% of households in our study area lacking access to a personal vehicle. Our methodology can be split into two primary components: data collection and data processing. Data was collected in two ways. First, pedestrian counts were obtained through in-person field work along 10 addresses in the focused neighborhood. Additionally, data regarding our variables was collected from online sources. Population data was gathered from the United States Census Bureau. Data on access to vehicles by household was collected from the American Community Survey, and data on transit routes and transit service was collected from the NFTA website. Following data collection, the data was processed in numerous ways. The addresses collected during the field work and their related pedestrian counts were geoprocessed using an address locator. This converted them into point files with associated pedestrian counts. Additionally, data obtained in tabular form from the census was attached to block group shapefiles in ArcMap, and maps were then created to display the following variables. We have the following findings as a result of these maps. Firstly, pedestrian counts appear to increase in more densely populated areas, as indicated by the dark red block groups in the south and north of the map. This, however, is not uniformly the case, as areas of comparatively lower population density also have high pedestrian counts, as seen most prominently in the western portion of the map, where the pinkish block groups still have very high pedestrian counts. When comparing pedestrian counts to households without access to personal vehicles, we find that block groups with relatively high percentages of households without car access also tend to have high pedestrian counts. This is seen on the map, where the block groups in the western and eastern portions of our study area have relatively high percentages of households without car access, yet also have relatively high pedestrian counts. This indicates that a lot of pedestrians taking advantage of these areas do not have reliable access to transportation.
A third finding was the inverse relationship between the pedestrian activity and access to cars. As the density of pedestrian activity increased, the number of households with access to cars decreased. Further, we found that pedestrian activity clusters around areas with significant access to public transportation. This demonstrates residents' reliance on transit and also the importance of people being able to safely walk to these areas. Next slide, please. Based on these findings, we drew several recommendations to drive the funneling of this grant funding. First, we suggest that investments in public transportation be made, both in terms of developing an increased number and an increased frequency of bus routes. This will increase residents' abilities to get from point A to point B safely and efficiently. Next slide, please. Second, we suggest an increased focus on the quality of streetscapes, investing in elements such as lighting and greenery, so as to build comfort and feelings of safety, increasing the likelihood that people will use transit and also walk for the purpose of public health. Next slide, please. Thanks for listening, and here's a list of the references used in this presentation.